Hey family, in this episode, doing a quick intro since it's been such a long time, kind of bringing up to speed what's going on and the goals for this podcast. Let me do our Q&A. Around 6-minute mark, give or take, we're going to talk about building muscle on keto. Then we go into the proper time to work out during intermittent fasting. Next up, we'll have best way to increase your cardiovascular endurance. After that, probably around the 25-minute mark or so, we're going to be talking about techniques to break strength plateaus. Then we talk about elevation mass. Should you use them? Should you look like Creed? Then after that, we cover blood flow restriction training, and then we finish up with arginine for nitric oxide production. One Rep at a Time Radio is back. What's going on, family? It's Marv. I'm going to be the host of One Rep at a Time Radio after probably one of the longest layoffs in podcast history. It's been almost like a year since we put out our last episode. That was right around the time, right before the Men's Health magazine article came out, and got super busy as a result of that, working on other projects. Personal life gotten busy, and I just didn't really have the time and energy that I could really properly give the podcast, so I decided to just hit the pause button, and now feel like I'm in a good place to focus back on it and really bring it back and be consistent, because it takes consistency to really build something like a podcast up. So One Rep at a Time Radio, if we have new listeners, it's going to be podcasts doing just the result of my 12 years of experience in fitness and health, personally, academically, professionally, working in wellness, working in rehab departments, various other aspects of health, personal training, online training, earning my undergrad in exercise science, CSCS, all that good stuff, is to just talk about exercise and fitness, nutrition, supplementation, general wellness, general mindset. There will be times where I do discuss addiction recovery, because I am somebody who openly identifies as being clean and sober since June 22nd of 2013. So that is a big part of my story. But I do think that that will not be as big of a focus of the podcast moving forward. It is part of my story, but I do know that kind of, for lack of a better word, pigeonholes the audience that this is going to appease to. So I want to kind of get a broad audience and also just be really upfront of, hey, we're going to talk about addiction recovery or body image, mindset, depression, narcissism, self-loathing, self-sabotage, stuff like that kind of went hand in hand with that. So that's what this podcast is going to be about. I think moving forward, we will do quick updates about me personally. We'll keep them super short and brief. Maybe have an assigned topic or two to discuss, and then just do Q&As, right? So see what folks want me to discuss. And I threw up a quick Q&A post on Instagram and Facebook, and was actually really surprised with how many questions we got since it's been so long. So I have a lot to get through. I'll try and go as quick as possible. And then moving forward, just kind of give you an announcement like in the intro we did of what we're going to be covering and if we're having a specific topic. Now let's do some housekeeping first. So social media is going to be my primary mechanism of getting information out there. It was a hard decision, but a few weeks ago, I decided to let the old website, onerepatatime.net, which was like a blog, and then also kind of the basis for my personal training, online training business. I kind of decided that I wasn't putting the time and effort into the blog aspect of it that I needed to. I just really hadn't been able to get the website how I envisioned it, and I am not the best at website programming. That's not one of my strengths. So it was a hard decision, but I decided to let that kind of run its course. So if you go to onerepatatime.net, there's not an active website on there. I still own the domain. My email still works. So if you ever want to get a hold of me, not on social media, primarily Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, my personal email still works, marv@onerepatatime.net. We still have our 100% free ebook, the One Rep at a Time manual, which is 52 pages of culmination of over a decade of experience and all the mistakes I made. Kind of goes in depth of how you could go about your physical transformation process, one day, one step, one meal, one rep at a time. That's still available on our Facebook page. So on Facebook, just type in One Rep at a Time. Will come up. It's at One Rep at a Time. Our social media is at One Rep at a Time _. YouTube is just One Rep at a Time. So we'll still be active there, but I hadn't written any new blogs in 6 months. I hadn't really been promoting it as much as I needed to continue to get new eyeballs or new visits. We had, our highly SEO'd blog posts, getting new people to come to that, but I just wasn't putting in the time or energy, and my time and energy is going to be deviated to something that's a big announcement coming soon, but until it's official, I'm going to kind of hold back. But there's going to be massive changes for me personally and professionally, still remaining in health and fitness and wellness, physical health, but some big changes. So maybe we'll get lucky and I get the phone call that I'm waiting back on today while I'm recording, so I can announce it now. But if not, stay tuned to that, so it'll all make sense of why I'm going to even have less time moving forward. But I still want to do something where I'm putting out content, creating stuff, a platform where something that I wish I had when I first started working out, because I made every mistake in the book. I got all my information out of muscle comics, aka bodybuilding magazines. I made a lot of mistakes, focused on the wrong things, wasted a lot of money. And so I just want to put out something that could help people. That's the platform I wish I had, but just to put out quality information. And it's good for me to have a passion project still. So stay tuned for that information, and that's the purpose of this podcast. And then, yes, I still do my online and private personal training, consultations, seminar series at work, all that stuff still. But I just decided that, the website had to run its course. It wasn't fair to me, because then I would beat myself up for, oh man, I haven't worked on the website in so long, but just my time and energy needed to be other places. So hope that makes sense. If not, I rambled on for about 6 minutes. So we will get into the Q&As. This is essentially almost going to be like a live Q&A, because I looked at a few of them, but I'm pulling it up on my phone right now. Maybe in the future I'll do a live Q&A if people in the podcast world have experience doing that. That would actually be pretty rad. I used to do that on Facebook, do Facebook Live Q&As. So pulling it up. For now, I'm going to keep people who ask publicly, because I did get a couple DMs and even emails this past week of questions I'm going to go over. For now, I'm going to keep usernames private or anonymous. Maybe in the future, if you ask me publicly, like on a thread, on the comment section, I'll put it out. So, but for now, I think I'll just keep it anonymous. But let me know what you guys think. So I'm just going to go kind of in order. Question number 1, keto and gaining muscle. Fantastic question. And a lot of these questions today, just FYI folks, is going to be a lot of very workout specific, weightlifting specific, nutrition and supplement specific questions. There's not really any mindset, even though mindset is important, or addiction recovery topics, but it's really big time heavy on the fitness and health and wellness and working out aspects side of things, which gets me super excited because I love to nerd out. So keto and gaining muscle. So real quickly, keto, short for ketogenic. It is the diet that is all the rage right now. Why? Well, it's not a new diet. It's been around for a very long time. But supplement companies finally figured out a way how to manufacture ketone supplements. So now that they can make money off of it, they brought it back in existence. So pay attention. Every 20 to 30 years, the same old diets will recirculate, and keto's all the rage right now. So keto, short for ketogenic. Now, why is it called ketogenic? Well, keto is where you're no longer running off of carbohydrate, which converts into glucose stored as glycogen in your muscle cells as your primary fuel source. Instead, you're relying on fat as your primary fuel source. And once you adapt to a ketogenic diet, your body turns fat into ketones, and then your body runs off these ketones for its energy source. So hence the name ketogenic. So your body is essentially a hybrid car. It can either run off of fat or carbohydrate. It very inefficiently can run off of protein, but primarily your fuel sources are either fat or carbohydrates. Now, if you want an in-depth discussion on the pros and cons of ketogenic eating or dieting or whatever you want to call it, refer back to the last podcast episode we did right before that magazine article came out, where I go in the pros and cons of popular eating strategies, and I believe keto is one of the first ones I covered, so I'll include the link to that episode in the description box, or the show notes, or whatever the fancy term for podcasting is. But keto and gaining muscle. So typically the idea is, you go on keto to lose weight. No, that's not necessarily true. Your calories in to calories out balance still matters. So keto is not magical for fat loss. But keto while gaining muscle, is it possible? It is. Now, how do I know it? Because I did that. Right now I have 2 individuals who I do online training with, and their nutrition and workouts are on ketogenic. My girlfriend's ketogenic. When she was diagnosed with breast cancer, we switched her to a ketogenic eating strategy or diet, whatever you want to call it. So to support her, I went keto for 10 months of a calendar year, and I put on 20 pounds. Now, some of it was body fat, but majority of it was muscle. I went from 169 pounds and really lean to almost just shy of 200 pounds. Now, again, calories in, the calories out is going to determine if you're putting on body weight, and then hopefully based on your nutrition and your training or your exercise, it's muscle primarily. So yes, it is possible to gain muscle on keto. Is it more challenging than if you're eating a more balanced diet or eating strategy? Absolutely. I was having to consume at the end up to 6,000 calories a day, which I personally would rather be consuming that amount of calories versus having to quote unquote diet or be in a caloric deficit. But definitely possible, but it's significantly harder. My calories had to be way higher on keto than they would be if I was consuming carbohydrates. Now, a lot of people will debate this, but that's just my own personal experience. Now, why was that so difficult? Because a lot of people are, 6,000 calories, that sounds amazing. Well, when you're on ketogenic eating, your satiety, your feeling of fullness is pretty spectacular. So when you're constantly feeling full, you're not having these big swings in blood sugar, which triggers a hunger response. Man, it's hard to put down that food, especially when you're eating quote unquote smart food items or single ingredient foods or whole item foods, because that's what I preach for my nutrition. So yes, it is possible, but man, you're gonna have to eat a lot more food overall. Now, keto is fantastic for endurance-based activities. It's fine for strength-based activities, but for higher repetition, like bodybuilding-esque routines, or something that revolves on glycogen for its fuel. So let's say even CrossFit's a good example. Keto is not ideal for, because you do need glycogen. So that's called glycolytic activity. So yes, performance will go down in the beginning. Once you adapt, performance goes back up, because they theorize your body gets more sensitive to carbohydrates. Strategic implementation of carbohydrates around training every once in a while is a good idea. But then you're not true keto, but that's kind of mistaking the forest for the trees or getting into the weeds too much. It is possible, but know that it's not suitable for every type of activity. Long term, people theorize that you will lose muscle. I mean, I don't know how true that is. I didn't go, when I'm talking long term, I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 years on a ketogenic eating strategy. Your thyroid will definitely downregulate 100%. Your thyroid will slow down some. But for gaining muscle, no, it's totally doable. But you've got some work to do with putting away calories. Question 2 from the same individual: proper time to work out while doing intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is all the rage right now. I am a big proponent of fasting. Hell, it's 1:30 right now, and I am fasted from last night. So I need to make a caveat and warning. Well, obviously, everything in this podcast is entertainment, educational purposes only. I'm not a doctor. This is not direct medical advice. But I'm a huge proponent of fasting. It was the number one advanced technique, or the first advanced technique in our 1 rep at a time nutrition hierarchy, which is the ebook I wrote, My Stance on Nutrition, that could be blended towards keto, towards paleo, towards whatever type of eating strategy you want to use. But fasting is not appropriate for everybody. If you're somebody who has an eating disorder in your past, specifically anorexia, hell no, absolutely not. You're not to fast whatsoever. If you're somebody who has people call it a damaged metabolism, just meaning like, say you're 175, 180 pounds, and if you consume anything more than 1,100 calories, you gain weight. Your metabolism is down-regulated and slowed down as a result of what's mostly the yo-yo dieter. You know, the crash diet followed by binge eating, followed by crash dieting, followed by binge eating. If your calories are way too low, you're not too fast. If we suspect you might have adrenal fatigue, which is another hot topic these days, or thyroid issues, probably fasting is not a good idea. But if you're somebody who has tried to, quote unquote, build muscle for a long period of time, like I did, where I was over consuming protein, over consuming food, period, fasting is awesome. Now, we do fasting, and I recommend fasting for the health benefits. Weight loss is a side effect. If we start to associate fasting with weight loss, that is a slippery slope towards an eating disorder. Now, they have done studies where folks who start to adopt fasting into their lifestyle, do they then all of a sudden create an eating disorder? One paper that I referenced in the book that I wrote says no, but we just need to be mindful of it. We're doing it for the health benefits, for the insulin sensitivity benefits, the gut health benefits, the cognitive benefits, the longevity benefits. So fasting is amazing. Now, intermittent fasting is really big right now. Guess what? What you still eat still matters. So if you overconsume calories on a day you fast, you're still going to gain body fat. Okay, it doesn't like magically erase. You can't just fast and then eat whatever the hell you want and not have no disregard, or have disregard for your health. And if you're stressing your physique, it doesn't work like that. But intermittent fasting, the 2 most popular protocols are the lean gains, which is a brilliant marketing ploy where you're fast 16 hours, eat food 8 hours, so it's an 8-hour feeding window. The warrior diet's the other popular one, 20 hours fasted, 4 hours fed. And those are 2 guys who are really well known and popularized it. And here's something you're probably going to hear a lot from me on this podcast, which is going to drive you up the wall. But I am, for the most part, try to avoid being dogmatic if this is the only way. Fasting window, or when to work out while doing intermittent fasting, it totally depends. And I would recommend playing with anything. Now, when I program in fasting, when I do fasting, I typically like to fast on days that I am not lifting weights. When I'm doing my fasting, I am doing my daily activity, so my step count, my post-it notes, or I have to do 5 body weight air squats every time I open up the fridge, or 10 air squats every time I use the restroom, lunges while I brush my teeth, things like that. I still get a lot of activity. I love to hike while fasted, but I try to, on days I lift weights, I feed myself throughout the day, and then the next day, if I'm not going to lift weights, I just do my mobility drills, maybe my resistance bands or body weight recovery sessions. I fast. So there, I can make a case for and against training weightlifting fasted, weightlifting fed. Personally, I think you should try both. Now, anecdotally, from my own experience, I could strength train fasted fine, heavy weight, low reps, totally fine. But if I'm doing bodybuilding-esque or, those glycolytic type activities like I talked about before, I prefer to do it fed. Now, if you are going to train fasted, I would be mindful of electrolyte intake, so make sure you're getting plenty of sodium, plenty of potassium, magnesium. Hell, maybe, I know it would technically break your fast, maybe even taking some glycerol before your workout, because if you consume a lot of water with glycerol, like vegetable glycerin, before your workout, like 10 grams of it, it will help you hold on to water. And when you are dehydrated, it greatly increases your risk of injury and decrease in performance. So making sure you're getting ample electrolytes before the workout, maybe during the workout. But typically, I would rather you be fed going into a weightlifting workout, and then on days you're not going to be working out, then that's when you can do your fasting. I recommend fasting, if it's appropriate, anywhere from 1 time a month to up to 3 times a week with alternate day fasts. Now, and you can make a case for and against, working out fast, working out fed. Typically, when it comes to fasted or fed cardio, I've always said from day one, unless you're taking certain supplements or drugs, there is zero difference in a 24-hour time period if you do your cardio fasted or fed. If it's like you wake up and then do you eat before your cardio or do your cardio fasted? Makes no difference, because you'll burn more fat while fasted and then less the remaining 24 hours of the day. If you do your cardio fed, you'll burn less fat during the cardio, but more the remainder of the day, so it always equals out. It all comes down to calorie balance. So, but when you're doing long fasts, when you're over the 20-hour mark, catecholamine production in the body goes up, norepinephrine goes up, cortisol goes up. So now growth hormone goes up, so you're able to mobilize fatty acids to potentially burn off. So if you do at the tail end of your fasted window cardio, whether that be steady state or HIIT, that's a whole nother topic for another day. At the tail end of a long fasting window, yes, you will actually burn more body fat. Specifically, if you're somebody who does I'm a bigger fan of full day fasting, like I said, 0 to 3 times, so 1 to 3 times a week, versus daily intermittent fasting of, I only eat 8 hours a day. At some point, your body's going to adapt, right? If we give this constantly the same stimulus, your body's going to adapt. The health benefits are actually more for extended fasting, but you always have to clear with your doctor, specifically when you're doing like a 72-hour fast. But if you do a bunch of activity right at the tail end of your fasting window and you're going over 20 hours, you will mobilize more body fat for potentially be burned off. So that's something to keep in mind. But it really, in the grand scheme of things, calories matter more. The quality of your training matters more. What do you do better with? I would actually recommend do periods, months at a time where you work out fed. Do months at a time where you work out fasted. Play around with it, right? Make your body, have to adapt and change. It's just another tool in the tool belt, so it really totally depends. But if you are going to do it fasted, make sure you're getting plenty of water, plenty of electrolytes. Maybe consider glycerin, which I know will technically break the fast, but that's kind of mistaken the forest for the trees. I personally I don't have my clients do weight training after over 20 hours of fasting. I would rather you be fed and use, that day to, I know it's simplifying it and it's not exactly how it works, but days you lift weights, okay, we're going to feed you, build muscle. On days you're not going to lift weights, and if we're decided to put you in a caloric deficit and fasting is appropriate, let's utilize fasting to help facilitate that caloric deficit and eat only 1 to 2 meals that day. So, man, it totally depends what you're doing. I like to play volleyball fasted. I do better than when I'm fed. That might be surprising, but I always play way better if I'm, I'll play up to 6 hours of beach volleyball straight, only drinking water, having taken in my electrolytes. I just use baking soda, potassium chloride, and magnesium malate in the morning. Next question, best way to improve cardiovascular endurance? Whew, that is a tough one. Oh, okay, so I know the guy who asked this. Super legit dude. And I've seen on his Instagram that he does some boxing. But best way to include cardiovascular endurance, well, the discussion needs to be cardiovascular endurance for what? If you are trying to run marathons, and you need to practice running a marathon. I have a new client starting and he wants to do a Tough Mudder run. Well, I'm not going to have him just run 5 miles straight to build up his, cardiovascular endurance. We're going to look up the average distance of running he has to do between obstacles, have him run that, and then when he finishes that, then we'll have him do pull-ups, push-ups, maybe some deadlifts, some squatting, whatever we figure out what we're going to do for him. Look up whatever activity you're going to do and you want to improve your endurance at. You want to mimic it as much as possible. So for like boxing, right? What is it, 5-minute rounds? I have no idea. I know UFC's 5-minute rounds. I don't know what boxing is. It's probably less. But anyways, you want to simulate that, so you go as hard as you can for that period of time. Now, that's just if you have a specific sporting event you're in trying to do. Like for freaking baseball, it makes no sense to have somebody run 3 miles straight for baseball when really you only have to sprint around the bases. Or football, you need to go specifically based on position. Why the hell do strength coaches still insist on having defense and offensive linemen run gassers, 100-yard gassers multiple times? It's like they don't do that. You want to be in your 20 by 20 yard box and just all out high explosive movement, total sprint, rest, recover, total sprint, rest, recover. So you want to stimulate it. Now, if you don't have a specific sporting event, high intensity interval training, so HIIT cardio, HI-IT, is drastically better than steady state. So HIIT cardio, when you're doing all out 100% effort sprinting followed by rest intervals, actually strengthen your cardiovascular system more so than steady state. So I am a fan of that. Now, quick discussion on HIIT cardio. It is not for everybody. It can't be deconditioned. Yes, it's actually, again, clear this with your doctor, but I've read studies and papers showing that it actually helps strengthen a heart after heart attacks or congestive heart failure. It helps reverse some of that. It increases the number and amount and efficiency of mitochondria, the powerhouses of muscle cells and throughout the body. So it's like touted as like the anti-aging exercise for seniors or everybody in general. I love HIIT cardio, but it is a stressor on the body. It can spike stress hormones. We need to treat it with respect. Now, almost all the studies showing the benefits of HIIT cardio, for the most part, use sprinting as the mechanism of action. I always recommend people start out on a freaking bike, maybe some battle rope, but typically on a stationary bike, because sprinting is a very highly specific skill. Most people have no business even jogging, let alone sprinting. And if you do your sprinting, I always recommend on a slight incline or up a hill because it forces you to be on the balls of your feet, not smashing your heels and just destroying your back and your knees with all that jarring. But HIIT cardio is simply spectacular. Now, I've also read, arguments where they claim that steady state, endurance marathon-like activities will actually signal your body to shrink the size of your heart and lungs because they'll do cadavers on high-end world marathon runners who just drop dead randomly, and they theorize that because the signal is to get as efficient as possible. I don't know about that. I would have to do more specific research. I think that might be the specificity of sport, right? If you find that you've just been born with the correct type of muscle fiber type and you have really highly endurance-based and efficient lungs and a heart, you're going to, kind of be shepherded into long-distance events versus if you're like Usain Bolt with massive amounts of fast-twitch muscle fiber. He's got obviously a very powerful heart, powerful lungs. He's going to do sprinting. So I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, HIIT cardio by far. Now, here's how you're going to do HIIT cardio. It's a 10 to 30 second all-out sprint. If you're going longer than 30 seconds, you're not doing really true HIIT cardio. It has to be like somebody has a gun to your head or somebody has a gun to your significant other or, God forbid, your children's head. Now, I know that's not the healthiest way to think about it, so maybe not visualize that, but it's got to be you've got nothing left in the tank. You always need to do a warm-up, so yes, slowly warm up. So I do my mobility drills. Then I will hop on my stationary bike for 2 to 5 minutes warm up, and then I'll do anywhere from a 10 to 30 second interval. I take a couple seconds to ramp up because I have actually, believe it or not, reherniated a disc going like from 0 to 100 miles an hour on one revolution of the bike, which was really embarrassing to literally crawl to my car and crawl home. And like, how'd you get hurt on a freaking stationary bike? But anyways, 10 to 30 second, 100% effort sprint. Then a lot of people say, oh, well, you have like a 20-second sprint interval and a 40-second rest interval, and then when the minute starts, you start the cycle over again. That's not true HIIT. True HIIT is you jack your heart rate up as high as you can with an all-out sprint, and then you wait until the heart rate comes all the way down. So it's the massive fluctuation of the heart rate that does the strengthening protocol. You start small. You can start with literally 2 intervals. Typically, I recommend people start with 4 intervals, and then you slowly work your way up to 8. Never go more than a half hour of HIIT. That's just way too much intensity, and then you're probably holding back. But yeah, HIIT cardio, by far the best way to improve cardiovascular endurance. Since he is a boxer, do that. You could do, if you do know how to program them correctly, complexes with a barbell or dumbbell or body weights are fantastic. I'm a big fan of complexes for overall general conditioning. So it's like cardio with weights, but like interval cardio with weights. Replicate what you're trying to do. Hope that answers the question. I know that was a big one. Techniques to specifically break through plateaus, specifically amount of weight on the big lifts. Fantastic question. So I have actually a couple of things we could do. So first and foremost, so when he's talking about the big three lifts, like this guy's a power lifter. He's a really good friend of mine. Those big three lifts are squat, deadlift, bench press. So those are what they do in powerlifting meets. So first and foremost, are you doing your accessory lifts? So those are lifts that'll help the big three, because a lot of folks will only do the big three lifts. They don't do any accessory work. They don't work on their mobility. They don't work on their technique. They just, if I want to get bigger deadlift numbers, I just need to deadlift all the time. Not necessarily true. So this is more specific for powerlifting. It's been a long time since I've had to recall this off the top of my head. But for the bench press, close grip benching is really good for building tricep strength. Same with floor pressing for the lockout. And then obviously it depends, and this is for all lifts, where is your sticking point? If you have a hard time getting out of the hole, then maybe start the bench from safety pins right in the bottom position so you have no elastic energy. There's a fancy name for that, but I don't know. I still think a Z press is fantastic, or an overhead military press is fantastic for increasing the strength of your bench. What is it? Yeah, so floor press, close grip bench, find the sticking point, right? So the floor press is great if the sticking point is the lockout because your triceps are giving out. Same with the close grip bench. If you have a hard time getting out in the bottom position where the bar is next to your chest, do a bench press from the safety pins in that bottom position. Adding progressive tension, whether it be chains or resistance bands, is another fantastic way. For the squat, absolutely box squat. Specifically, I have a hard time getting out of the hole. Pause squats, where you pause in the bottom, take all the elastic energy out. Split squats, which I'm going to talk about in a second, are a fantastic accessory for that. I know a lot of guys recommend the front squat. Helps them get better at squatting, and those are that. For the deadlift, 100%. Good mornings, done properly, fantastic exercise. I really like Zerchers for improving deadlift strength. What else? A lat pull down or a straight arm pull down is good for just building the strength of your lats. I know a lot of folks recommend shrugs. I don't really know. I'm not a huge fan of that. And with also an accessory lift that you don't really think about for the bench press, face pulls. You got to strengthen up your middle and lower traps to be able to keep your shoulder blades retracted and depressed. So, man, you get good at face pulls. One, you'll have better posture. It's good for your shoulder health. An external rotation for the rotator cuff. Build up the muscles in the middle of your back, responsible for moving your shoulder blades. So, face pulls, 100%. Now, once you've done, and then whatever your sticking point is, got to get better at that. So, also deficit deadlifts. If you have a hard time getting the bar off the ground, deficit deadlifts are a fantastic way to break through a strength plateau. Now, for the average person who's maybe not be so powerlifting specific, if you hit a wall and you can't get any stronger, so strength plateau, I should have probably started with that. It means you just really can't add any extra weight to a bar. Put down the barbell and start grabbing dumbbells and kettlebells and do what's known as unilateral movement. So if you only two-leg squat with a barbell, or leg press, and you can't get any better at that, I want you to start doing unilateral, so one side at a time is moving movement, such as a lunge. Bulgarian split squat. Man, our lunges and Bulgarian split squats will dramatically improve your squat strength and power because it forces the external rotators of your hip to fire, the stabilizers to fire. For bench press, using dumbbells, doing a one-arm press, doing a 2-1-1 pattern, so you press up with both arms and you press up with one, press up with the other. So unilateral movements, holy cow, man. They really work really well for the lower body. I mean, you start to get good at Bulgarian split squats or even jumping. So I haven't done them in a long time, but I was doing jumping weighted Bulgarian split squats where I jump up from the bottom of the hole, 80-pound dumbbells in each hand for sets of 12. Like crushing it, getting 3, 4, 5 inches off the ground. My squat went up 50 pounds when I was doing that. I actually need to get back to doing that. So I love, unilateral movements for getting through strength plateaus. Spend 2 to 5 weeks only doing unilateral training. I prefer dumbbell lunges to barbell lunges. Some people will say step ups. I think lunges and Bulgarian split squats translate better. But you spend 2 to 5 weeks only doing unilateral stuff. Go back to your two-legged, more traditional or two-arm barbell, base movements, and watch how much stronger you're going to be within 1 or 2 workouts because you've built up the strength, the stabilizers. You build up all the various potentially external rotators or adductors in the lower body. Your proprioception's better. Your balance is better. Your mobility is better. So there's that. What else can you do? You can do supra max loading, which is a fancy term for you merely put more weight on the bar than you could actually do a repetition with. And you unrack the weight and you hold it there, let your central nervous system feel it. You put the weight back, you take the extra weight off, then you do your working set, and the bar should feel lighter. So the best example is can't really do it with deadlifts, but with squats and bench, fantastic. So say you're doing a bench, because I did the squat for the previous example. And let's just say you're stuck at 225 pounds. You just can't get over that plateau. Well, you would load up the bar with 275, 300 pounds. You would merely have somebody help you unrack the bar. You don't do a repetition. You hold it over your chest, arms extended. That is going to lead to a supercompensation by your central nervous system for feeling this heavy-ass weight that you can't rep. So you would hold it for 5 to 10 seconds. I try and get folks to do it for 10 seconds. You put the bar back. You take the extra weight off, you go down to your 225. I guarantee you're going to do more repetitions. Or you might be able to add, 5 pounds. So that is another great way. Micro loading, where you add, you get these really small half pound plates. They're like magnets. That works well. And then I already talked about progressive tension. So you use chains or resistance bands. That's another great way. But work on the accessory lifts. Do unilateral trading, supermax holding. Also, learn how to brace properly. A lot of people don't know how to brace properly. So let's go back to the squat. A lot of folks take a breath in as they descend or squat down into the hole. No way. I want you to have a massive gulp of air in. So I picture I'm eating there. So I go, gulp the air. Then I hunker down. I brace my core as if somebody's going to punch me as hard as they can in the stomach. Brace my core. I squat down. I come out. Then I exhale. Do that with every movement. You'll be significantly stronger if you learn how to brace. It creates more intra-abdominal pressure. It's going to make you stronger. And then also you could do explosive movements with resistance bands right before the lift. So let's go back to a bench press. If you have good mobility, you don't have any nagging injuries, you're properly warmed up, you load the bar up with your working weight, then you do 3 to 5 super explosive resistance band chest presses, and you go straight into the weight. That could excite your central nervous system as well. So it's kind of switching the traditional, what's the name for that? This is when I need to look up the questions before I go into it. There's a term where you do heavy squats and then you jump afterwards and you'll be able to jump really, really high. That's what athletes do. For the average person, you have no business doing it. But it kind of reverses the process where you're doing resistance bands, or say you're going to squat, you would do 3 to 5 jumping squats and then go straight into your squatting. And in theory, you should be stronger because you've excited your central nervous system. I remember. Post-activation potentiation. That's the term for this technique that I'm talking about. So those are some awesome, good ways to get through lifting plateaus, getting through it. And then also, you might just merely need to take a break. Maybe you're overtrained. I took over 3 weeks off. I'm still easing my way back into the gym. I just scheduled you though because I actually had real symptoms of overtraining. My sleep was shit. I was just sore. My joints hurt. The tendonitis in my left elbow flared up really, really bad. I'm still combating that. So 1 week was planned. Then we went on vacation / a very important trip, which that's the announcement I'll be able to make soon. And then I got really sick. So I took 3 weeks off and I'm still slowly easing my way back into it. But you might just need to take a couple days off, go for a hike, work on your mobility. You just honestly might need to take a break, take a couple days off. Old school bodybuilders and powerlifters would take months off at a time after shows. And studies have shown that if you actually take breaks, they had 2 groups, and you can't quote me on the lengths of time for the working out and the breaks, but they had 2 groups where one group just continued to lift weights consistently for the entire period of time of the study. Another group lifted weights, then they took a break, and then they went back to lifting weights. The folks who took a break ended up building more muscle in the long run than the folks who worked out consistently, which is surprising. But there's something to be said about resensitizing your body to everything, whether it be to supplements, medication, whether it be to protein or food. That's like the whole idea of carb cycling. Well, guess what? Nobody talks about protein cycling, of actually having purposely low protein days to resensitize yourself to protein. resensitize yourself to just merely lifting weights, right? Your body's going to, the signal's going to not be as loud in the beginning as a newbie or somebody who's taken time off, then you're constantly sending the same signal to your body, whether it be through a constant influx or overconsumption of protein, a constant influx of carbohydrate. That's why people lose their insulin sensitivity. They have way too much blood sugar 24 hours a day going on, so they're not nearly as sensitive. Same to be said with weight training. So even take a break. You might really need that. Also look at your sodium intake. Sodium is massively important. Look at your hydration. Hell, you might need to increase your magnesium intake. So that's what I would look at for that. Elevation mask. When and why is a proper time to properly utilize them? Oh, here comes a rant. Now, I said I'm normally not dogmatic. I try not to be, but sometimes I am going to be very firm. Elevation masks are fucking stupid. You look like an idiot when you're wearing one. They don't work. Now, I know I just bashed on them, but to be fair, I was one of those idiots, and I even looked worse than some of the elevation masks. In college, I would, when I was, wannabe triathlete person, wannabe bodybuilding person, look how awkward I was. I would put weight plates in my backpack. I would strap it to my back. I would plug my nose with one of those swimming, nose plugs. And then I would put a snorkel on my damn head and breathe out of the snorkel while running outside in public to show how hardcore I was, thinking, oh, it'll increase my cardiovascular endurance and just make me a better performer. Hell no. So the whole theory of elevation masks, they're the things that looks, what was the movie? Creed. Creed made them really popular again. It's so stupid. I even see them in damn college football strength program promos where they're having their athletes squat heavy with elevation masks on. Who the hell is hiring these guys? They don't work. The idea was, well, there's in theory supposed to reduce the concentration of oxygen in the air you're breathing, which should lead to improved cardiovascular endurance and get the benefits of living up at elevation. Well, first and foremost, it takes months, if not years, to live up at elevation, have physiological changes. Those physiological changes are increased hemoglobin and hematocrit in the blood, so your blood thickens to enable yourself to utilize the reduced amounts of oxygen. So who was it? Tito Ortiz, even though I can't stand the guy. Personally, he was decent. Tito Ortiz always did his camps up in Big Bear, California, which is really high elevation. He would attribute that to his success. That's when teams go play, NFL teams go play in Denver, Colorado, or since I'm from San Diego, big fan of San Diego State football, we always get our asses kicked in Wyoming because it's so damn high. Well, there's less oxygen in the air. Your body's not adapted to that. Your cardiovascular endurance and capacity is going to be greatly reduced. So that was the theory of wearing an elevation mask. But guess what? It takes months, if not years, for the physiological changes to happen for your bodies to adapt. So merely strapping on an elevation mask for a 30-minute workout session ain't going to do shit. And all they do, they don't reduce the concentration of oxygen. They reduce the amount of air you're breathing. So like me being a dumbass, wearing my snorkel, breathing out of the snorkel, my nose plug, it didn't reduce the concentration of oxygen I was breathing. It was merely reducing the amount of air I could get in. And yeah, so there's never, ever, ever a time to utilize them. So save your money. All right, moving on. Let me pull up. So those are the Instagram comment questions. Here's some private ones I got. Blood flow restriction and their benefits. So blood flow restriction, I'm a huge fan, but like fasting, what else did we talk about? Like fasting, like HIIT cardio, there is some caveats. It is not appropriate for everybody. If you're on blood thinners, I'm not a big fan of it. And if you are somebody who is a former IV drug user, hell no. Stay far away. Putting on a tourniquet is going to be way too much of a trigger. So if you're a former IV drug user, just skip ahead in the podcast. Don't listen to this conversation. So blood flow restriction, known as BFR, originally occlusion training or Katsu training, was created by the Japanese with these Katsu, $10,000 Katsu cuffs that a couple of NFL teams bought. And then this Dr. Jeremy Lineker popularized it and said, hey, by the way, instead of spending $10,000 on these cuffs, $20 knee wraps works just as well. Wah, wah. Whoops. So anyways, blood flow restriction. God, I love it. But it has a time and a place. There's a lot of cool research behind it. So the idea is by putting tourniquets and if you could use quick release medical tourniquets. That's what I use for my upper arm. So Yeah, you put it on your limbs, so you obviously can't blood flow restrict your chest or your lats, but you can blood flow restrict your forearms, your biceps, your triceps, and your legs. You can blood flow restrict your quads, your hamstrings, and your calves. But you put tourniquets at the top of the limb. When you use quick release medical tourniquets, they're like 10 or 12 bucks on Amazon. You do that tightness 9 out of 10. I use them for my upper arms. When you do your legs, I use $20 knee wraps. The tightness is 7 out of 10. And what happens is it allows blood to go into the working limb, but it doesn't allow it to get out. So lactic acid builds up, signals a dramatic increase in growth hormone and satellite cell production. Waste products build up, hydrogen ion byproducts build up. So blood can get in, it can't get out. So it's like the craziest pump you've ever felt. And what it does is it stimulates muscle growth with low loads as much as heavy loads. So the protocol is you put the tourniquets on, you use 30% of your 1 rep max. What that means is, this is to do easy math. In theory, your 1 rep max for a curl is 100 pounds. Well, 30% of your 1 rep max is 30 pounds. So the protocol is 30% of your 1 rep max. It has to be lightweight. So no heavy weight with blood flow restriction. And the protocol is 30 reps, rest 30 seconds, keep the tourniquets on. 15 reps, rest 30 seconds. 15 reps, rest 30 seconds. 15 reps, rest 30 seconds. Take them off. There's no benefits. They've done a lot of studies. What if we do 10 sets? What if we do 2 rounds of blood flow restriction? I see really big people on Instagram. Oh, I did 10 minutes of blood flow restriction. No, that is dangerous. Like, this could be potentially dangerous. 30 reps, rest 30 seconds. 3 sets of 15 reps with 30-second rest. Take them off. Okay, that's it. Slow, consistent tempo. Just really squeeze the muscle, get a good contraction. It will stimulate muscle growth as much as heavy loads without the stress on your tendons and ligaments, without the stress on your central nervous system. It's great for building lagging body parts. They did a lot of research with putting these tourniquets on people's legs after LCL surgery, reconstruction surgery, just sitting in a hospital bed, and it cut down the recovery time significantly. So I'm using that to try and get, because ligaments and tendons have really crummy blood flow. So that's one of the reasons why they theorize. They're still not 100% certain, but that way it enhances recovery. So I've been doing it on my elbow that's really flared up, as long as I found I had a lat impingement and needing to strengthen my damaged wrist, do corrective exercise and rehab work. But they were fantastic for that. I was listening to another doctor who's been, not Jeremy Lineker, I forget the guy's name, man. He's talking about how they found that merely putting the tourniquets on people's legs and having them walk on a treadmill has some pretty amazing cardiovascular benefits as a whole for folks who cannot, do HIIT cardio or do a squat for whatever reason. But even just merely putting the tourniquets on their legs and having them walk for a short period of time gives all the health and physiological benefits. So you shouldn't be doing it year round. It is a novel stimulus, but I definitely do it 3 or 4 months out of the year. Huge fan. I really like it for when we're going really heavy strength training, long rest periods, low reps for the big lifts, squat, row, overhead press, chest press, deadlifts, split squats, lunges. We're going heavy for that, but folks still want to bring up maybe their arms. Doing blood flow restriction at the tail end of a heavy workout, it doesn't kill the ligaments, doesn't continue to dig a ditch with your central nervous system to not be able to come out of. So awesome tool. I love it. Not appropriate for everybody. Use it for 1 to 2 months at a time. Get rid of it. It is a tool that comes in very, very handy. But man, you've never felt a pump. Now, guys say, the doctors have researched it, said, well, if you want to blood flow restrict your calves, just put it at the top of your legs. It still blood flow restricts there. That is true, but personally, I have found that if I put the tourniquets right at my kneecap, right below, right above the calves, I just get a much more significant blood flow restriction effect. And then obviously, we got to be smart with the exercise. I'll see people blood flow restrict with leg press or barbell squats. No, that doesn't make sense. Maybe leg press, super light, but I'd rather you blood flow restrict with goblet squats. Or the only time I use leg extension machines is blood flow restricting, where I'm sitting up, getting a maximum contraction. Leg curls is fine. Sure, I guess you can do Romanian deadlifts. I like single leg Romanian deadlifts, or man, you do a body weight split squat with blood flow restriction. Dear God Almighty, fantastic. Obviously, any type of curl, any type of tricep movement. Can't really blood flow restrict your shoulders, so it's really your arms and your limbs and your legs. Blood flow restriction calf raises are phenomenal. All you need is body weight and a curb or a stair, and you can do it at home. Dear God, it's a crazy pump. So huge fan of blood flow restriction. What else? Well, I think I'll do one more because we're almost at 50 minutes. Want free coffee? I thought so. Go to commongoodcoffee.com. When you join their coffee subscription service, you get awesome bags delivered 1 or 2 times a month. Use promo code ONEREP, ONEREP as in Paul, in all caps. Get your first order, including shipping, 100% free. These are craft coffee roasters. They're top-notch stuff, absolutely delicious from all over the world. Go to Common Good Coffee right now. Sign up for the subscription service. And I'll record another episode to cover up the rest of them and maybe do a topic. Oh, arginine for NO production. So what the hell does that mean? Arginine is an amino acid. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. That is in a lot of supplement companies' pre-workouts because they increase your NO production. NO stands for nitric oxide. So in theory, if you increase your nitric oxide, it allows your blood vessels to relax and dilate more so you can get a bigger pump. So the pump is what Arnold Schwarzenegger, I can never say his last name right. He can't pronounce California and I can't pronounce his last name. Made so popular in the Pumping Iron movie, which is it's still awesome, man. Talk about inspiring. But anyways, I digress. So the idea was if you increase your NO production, you get bigger pumps, which might give you more muscle growth. The science is not so cut and dry. But when you have a big pump, you look phenomenal. I mean, that's why you never look as big as you do in the gym when you're working out with higher repetitions because you get a massive pump. But guess what? Like elevation masks, arginine is a waste of flipping time and money. It simply does not work. We've known this for a long time, yet supplement companies still stupidly utilize it. On paper, it sounds great. Don't quote me, but I believe there's 2 pathways to create nitric oxide in the body. I'm going to cover both and what I would use instead of arginine. But I believe it goes arginine to something else to nitric oxide. But guess what? Arginine does not leave the gut. It gets broken down in the stomach and it doesn't leave. When I was doing my undergrad, they found that it takes over 12 grams of arginine by itself to be able to leave the gut in any meaningful concentration, increase nitric oxide. But when you take 12 grams of that, it led to massive, massive GI distress. It did in cyclists. So arginine is an absolute waste of time. It merely gets broken down in the body. So like a lot of the shit that we take, like it doesn't get out of our stomach. So, and look, I was a huge fan of arginine. I took arginine, L-arginine, arginine AKG. I took my agmatine, my citrulline. I'm somebody who took 40 to 50, 40 to 50 supplements in a given day, thinking they would give me the body of my dreams, fix me, because I had that gaping hole inside. I had my body dysmorphia, my body image disorder. So I've spent tens of thousands of dollars. I wish I would get that money back to have a nice car. I mean, I could have a freaking Cadillac at this CTSV at this point from the amount of money I spent on supplements when I was younger and stupid. And I take less supplements now than ever, and I look way better than I ever have. But anyways, I digress. It doesn't work. Now, there's citrulline, citrulline, which is another amino acid which works on the same pathway. And I believe citrulline turns into arginine, which turns into nitric oxide. For some reason, that works better for actually meaningfully increase NO production in the actual bloodstream. But what's even better than citrulline is the alternate pathway. So there's 2 pathways, 2 ways to create NO production in the body. And after learning this in my undergrad, I theorized that would be the next big thing. And I started utilizing a grocery item, a vegetable, beets. So you could either get beetroot powder or eat some beets or blend. I blend up pre-steamed and pre-peeled beets with some water into a paste. And one of the benefits of being a recovering alcoholic is I could drink almost anything. So I just choke it down, no big deal. But the nitrate pathway, which turns into nitrate, turns into NO production, is far more efficient and effective of actually increasing blood plasma levels of NO in the bloodstream, which gives you a bigger pump. They found that greatly increases endurance. Like I think cyclists were the main thing. So actually, yeah, I have a client who's a cyclist and I always recommend when he does these big 30, 40, 50 mile rides, he does blend up some beets. It will improve endurance. It's poor man's Viagra. I mean, citrulline is too, but nitrates work better because it increases blood flow. That's all Viagra or Cialis does. So arginine, don't waste your time. Save your money. Go the beetroot. So beetroot powder or just get some beets. I used to take supplemental nitrates. Vasotropin by Gaspari was the supplement I took. And it's like, instead of spending $60 on a bottle, I could spend $6 on enough beets to last me 2 weeks of workouts. So yeah. But anyways, yeah, arginine is dead. Citrulline, if you want to go that pathway. But on the grand scheme of things, does it make a huge difference? No, not really. Having enough water and sodium is going to make more of a difference for your pump than these things. But if you combine them, when I want to be a little extra vain and get a little extra bigger with my pump, then absolutely I will take nitrates. I've done it on our Instagram a couple times, the before and after of a beat. I've talked about it on the old website. So that will be the first episode back. Thank you for all the questions. I will make sure that I get a little bit more efficient at answering. It's going to be a little bit of practice because it's been so long since I recorded an episode or an internet radio show back in the day on the Recovery Channel. But anyways, hope you got something out of this. Definitely check out our social media. Remember, you get that free ebook on our Facebook page. Email me, marv@onerepatatime.net. If you have any questions about training, nutrition, supplementation, custom workout routines, corrective exercise, mobility drills, seminars, all the stuff that I still am going to do despite the big news coming up, just shoot me a message anywhere. And then I would greatly appreciate it if you share this with any friends and family. Again, the goal is not to monetize this. The goal is just to share my experience, my knowledge, and maybe some strength and hope when I do talk about my own personal story. And remember, we can do anything we want. One day at a time, one meal at a time, one set at a time, one rep at a time. Marv, One Rep at a Time Radio. Thanks for listening, family. Have a fantastic day.